Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show on this Wednesday, the 19th of May, 2021. Thank you for tuning in. Now, listen, I was a little bit ahead, get you guys a little bit ahead on the route that came in the crypto market. You guys get a little bit of a heads up from me. I mean, it wasn't a whole lot in advance, but it was a little bit in advance, and sentiment turned, and I caught it. But listen, guys, I'm going to tell you what. This route was a little bit deeper and quicker than I expected it to be. I expected it to be a little bit slower, but I mean, Bitcoin lost almost 50% of its market cap, and it moved almost into oversold territory this morning. Seems to be bouncing back a little bit, but is the route over? I don't know. But I do know sentiment's changed. Now, where did the money go? Like I tell you, follow the money, right? Okay, so we're going to follow the money in this market report this morning, and we're going to see where some of the money might have went from the cryptos, where it's going into asset classes, and well, let's get started. Let's open up the charts right here and take a look at what's going on. First thing we're going to take a look at is the silver price today. It's down 29 cents, but roughly, when you look at this chart and see the green line is relatively stable, really, considering what's the swings that are happening in other asset classes. Now, we take a look at gold. Gold's at $18.84. It's up $15.70. Listen, guys, never forget that the biggest part of the foundation behind the whole world's financial system always has been gold. It still is gold. It's, everything else, the financial system, you got gold at its core as the core asset of the financial system for the whole world. And everything else, is built on top of that. It's like when you build a building and you have that cornerstone, the bedrock underneath the building, and that's your solidity behind the foundation. Well, gold is that. That's what gold is. And I don't really see gold being unseated as actually it's the ultimate form of liquidity. Is gold worldwide, You got a lump of gold, you can get anything. I don't care where you are in the world. I don't care what country, I don't care what language they speak. Gold is it, and it always has been it. Now, that being said, this new emerging technology of cryptocurrencies is definitely going to take over. For speed of transaction across the internet, to making transactions seamlessly and fast across the internet, it is the ultimate, And I was talking about that hash graph. Hash graph right now, maybe they'll make more advancements later, but hash graph right now is it's better, faster, everything, than these other coins. And so that's why I'm very interested in it. And because the world is moving toward a seamless transfer of without a third party of money across the internet and microtransactions. Listen, you guys got to think about microtransactions and also cost of transaction across the internet. What's the cost to send a transaction? The leader right now, better than Visa, better than any of these other, the leader for cheapness of cost of transaction is hashgraph technology. The underlying technology. And it's a quantum leap in cryptocurrency technology. So take that into consideration. Keep it in the back of your mind. Let's take a look at cryptocurrencies today. What we're looking at is 1,594,000,000,000 dollar industry. And it's still there, even though it took an awful beating in the last 24 hours. It's taken an awful beating, but it's still there, and right now, I think that the beating is pretty much, I mean, that was the awful beating. Let's face it, one more beating like that, Bitcoin would be $1,000. So, I mean, it's we got to start looking at that and say, well, gee, how much of that was a big one. That was a big drop, a really big drop. If you saw that kind of drop in the stock market, you would be looking at the stock market losing 12,000 points overnight. Not to say that can't happen, guys. So let's take a look now at the Dow. Dow's down 401 points today. So there's a little bit of a rout happening in the markets too right now. 401 points down on the Dow. Let's take a look now at crude oil. Oh, I didn't say how much the Dow was. Just give me a second. 33,659. That's where it's at. It's still way too high. I'm going to tell you, the Dow Jones and all of the other markets, S&P 500, all of them, are just as big a bubble as crypto. And they could lose just as much. Crude oil 62.02. It's down $3.47 today, down 5.3%. Does that mean they'll bring the price at the pump down a little bit, guys? They should. I mean, they're paying less. Why should they make us pay more? That doesn't make any sense, Okay, move index today, 57.18. It's down $1.42. The 1 point, it's down 2.42%. So the move index is staying low. That's a good thing, guys, because that means that the credit markets are roughly stable right now. Okay, let's take a look at bonds and rates. We're seeing a drop in yields on the bond today. That means that money has come into the bonds. Now, because the bond market is so big, what this means is a good chunk of that capital or liquidity that just came out of the cryptocurrencies, you might be seeing it reflected here in these dropping yields on the bonds. Because the bond market is so big, it could absorb all of that. See, okay, you got your market cap of 2 point something trillion in cryptos, right? Say 2.3 trillion in cryptos, and it drops back to 1.5 trillion. So you got roughly, what's that, nearly $1 trillion comes out of crypto. But not really, because what happens is just because the market cap that high is when they pull the money out, not as much comes out as the market cap shows. Because the price drops. See? And so just because they lost say 700 billion in market cap or 800 billion in market cap or whatever, that doesn't mean that $800 billion worth of liquidity come out. Probably only a quarter of that came out of actual liquidity came out. And so you might be looking at 300 billion worth of liquidity came out. You pump 300 billion, or a good chunk of that 300 billion, into the bond market, and it's only going to move it, because it's such a big market, it's only going to move it 1 or 2 basis points. And that's what we're seeing, 1 or 2 basis point movement in the bond market. So you want to follow the money. I think a good chunk of the money went into these bonds. But I think they're making the biggest mistake in the world. Because there's only 2 things that's going to happen with these treasuries. You have to understand that the treasuries are linked directly to the United States government. It's like, okay, companies sell stocks, right? The United States government sells bonds. It's like an investment in the United States government. It's bankrupt. Like a lot, $140 trillion in unfunded liabilities that they can't pay. So there's only 1 or 2 ways that they can go, because this is like a corporation that has a printing press in the back room. And so that's what they're going to do. They're going to have to do one of two things to keep from bankruptcy. They're going to have to keep printing, or they're going to have to go defunct and say, okay, we can't pay on these treasuries or anything. We can't pay on anything. We're broke. Default, you're only going to get a certain percentage of what your treasury's worth. They'll never do that because they'd default on everything. You wouldn't get your Social Security checks. You wouldn't. Do they really want to have 1 million elderly seniors coming after them with canes? No, it ain't going to happen, guys. They're going to keep paying. But that means they're just going to have to keep printing and printing and printing and printing endlessly. And because they do that, I mean, do you really believe that the dollar's going to go up in its purchasing power with them printing endless amounts of them? You know? What just happened is deflationary. There's a little bit of a deflationary thing that just happened. And never forget, we're in a war between inflation and deflation. But they can't let the deflation happen. So they're going to keep going with the inflation. And so what we're going to see is eventually these yields are going to rise. U.S. treasuries are going to start to rise. And that's why I've been saying that the U.S. 10-year, I'm expecting a target. My target for the U.S. 10-year at the end of this year is around 2%. But that's critical. Because when you start to go over 2% on the U.S. 10-year, when you hit about 2.25%, that's a tipping point. You see? Okay, so let's take a look now at the dollar index. The dollar index still hasn't risen above 90, even with this little bit of a deflationary pulse that we just had that's rippling through the investment community. Especially hit cryptocurrency hard. Okay, so cryptocurrencies, do I expect them to go lower? I think that what they're doing is we've just entered into a cryptocurrency bear market. But it's not going to stay in a bear market for all that long. It's going to stay in a bear market until inflation starts to really heat up. And then the cryptocurrencies are going to start to heat back up again too. This next bull run into cryptocurrencies is going to be the big one. And at this point, there's a lot of questions behind Bitcoin about its TPS, the amount of transfers per second, only 7. They can only transmit 7 transactions per second across the internet for that whole network of Bitcoin. That's a scaling problem, and it's a huge scaling problem. There's another scaling problem. They don't have any way, Bitcoin does not trim. They don't have automatic trimming of the blockchain size. The blockchain has become bloated. Try to download a node. You'll be sitting there waiting for, it'll fill your whole computer up, for crying out loud, because it records every transaction from the beginning of Bitcoin until now. These are huge problems. Also, you got Bitcoin is still susceptible to a 51% attack. Huge problems for Bitcoin. Bitcoin was the first, but it's not going to be the last cryptocurrencies. And there is a possibility in the future, maybe 2, 3, 4 years from now, where some other coin will take the crown. And no, I do not think it's going to be Ethereum. So what we're looking at is an industry that's still in an evolutionary phase. The cryptocurrency industry is still evolving. And if you're going to be in cryptocurrencies, you got to be up for that. You got to be up for what's going to be next within the big cryptocurrency world, So, you got to be quick on your feet. And you've got to be able to quickly adjust to what's happening within this cryptocurrency environment in order to be successful at being a cryptocurrency investor, keep your eyes open, and you got to be flexible. You just can't say, well, Bitcoin is the be-all and end-all of cryptocurrencies, because Bitcoin's got huge problems. Who was Satoshi? Who the heck knows who Satoshi was? But I'm going to tell you what, whoever the creators or creators of Bitcoin were, there is a possibility that Bitcoin was put out there as a beta test. Only as a beta test for something bigger or greater that they already had planned in the back of their mind. Ultimately, in the end, I think that cryptocurrency is going to be the way money is transferred across the internet. Cryptocurrency is it's like email was. When email first started, everybody out there was like, oh my goodness, they'll never use email. Nobody will use this. People will use postal service. And then email took off. And that's the way with transferring money. It's the same thing. Look at trying to transfer actual cash. If you want to pay somebody, make settlement with somebody, and say they're 100 miles away, yeah, we used to drive 100 miles to pay a person. But just like regular mail, snail mail, we used to send a letter 100 miles. We used to put it in the mailbox. Isn't it easier just to go inside the house and open up your laptop and send them the letter? Done. Well, it's the same way with money now. And cryptocurrency is going to be the way people send money across the internet. So they're going to resolve all these issues, scaling and everything else. And what we're going to see, and I've been waiting for it for a while, I've been watching for it, is the new cryptocurrencies that are able to scale and able to be very energy efficient and so on and everything, I've been watching for that. So listen, guys, have a great rest of the day. Like and subscribe. Comment. Lots of comments. I love comments. Really, they help my channel big time. And we'll catch you guys in the very next show. Bye-bye.